and welcome to episode 56 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
So we have an interesting game this week. I picked it.
Yep.
I've heard about this game for a while. I saw a video, I want to say years ago. Are you familiar with Did You Know Gaming?
It sounds very familiar, but to name something that they've done, I don't know.
They do a lot more like short form stuff. It's like, did you know about this game or this series, whatever. Like it's very kind of quick stuff, but I like they do this thing called Region Locked, and they talk about games that didn't come to America. So that's how I found this.
Okay. Yeah, you always pull out these like games that just look like, oh, they were only released in Japan or Europe. I'm like, how are you finding these things?
Well, I just want to pick something that I know that you will never pick. And I just, for my pick, I want to pick something that is weird or just outside of the box, because there's so many like platformers, whatever. Like It's so easy to just pick something we're familiar with. So I just try and get outside the box.
Yeah, I like that.
But yeah, so just to get us started, like, what are your thoughts on adventure games? Because this is definitely an adventure game, but I would say it leans more into the more modern style adventure games, like the cinematic style, as opposed to like the straight up point and click ones.
Yeah, it's always a weird balance for me because we always talk about how much we love story and how, oh, this game would have been great if we just had more story in it. But then there's that balance of if it's too much story, then it's like, okay, well, then I'm just watching a movie. Where's the gameplay? And so to get that balance between the two is sometimes difficult between a lot of the games. But I mean, adventure games in general, I really don't play too many of them.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's like an adventure game mixed with something else. So, and I don't know if these would even count, but like the Stanley Parable is like a walking sim adventure game.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call that an adventure game, but I guess it technically is.
Kinda, yeah.
I mean, what would you call it then? I don't know.
Yeah. And I think walking sim is just the very generic overarching like umbrella to put a lot of these under.
I feel like that term is almost derogatory.
Yeah. But stuff like that, like the Telltale walking games is kind of like an adventure game too.
So I was going to save this point for later, but I'll just rip it right now. I just think this game is so ahead of its time. This is like pretty much The Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now that you say that, I can see it.
And this is like years before those games started to really hit their stride. I mean, I can't remember when, but I know The Walking Dead was like what, late 2000s, early 2010s probably.
That sounds about right, yeah.
This came out in 2000. So like so ahead of its time. And like, I just found that very interesting because I love those games. Like I got fatigued on them like everybody else did eventually, but that and the Quantic Dream games like Detroit Become Human and like Beyond Two Souls, like it reminds me of all of those. Like this was kind of paving the way for those games in a way.
I honestly forgot about Detroit Become Human. And now that you say that, I can see a direct comparison between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like regular adventure games like at all. I mean, if it has a good story, then I'll like it. Like we played Snatcher, which we both really liked.
Yep.
But a lot of that stuff is, you end up having to follow a walkthrough, which I did look at a few times for this game. I'm going to get that out of the way now.
Oh, me too. We will definitely be talking about that later.
But, once you got to The Walking Dead and stuff, it kind of became more straightforward. Like a lot of people would say too easy, but I don't love the idea of, even with Snatcher, we followed a walkthrough where you're like, use this item here, then combine it with this, then go here this time and do this. It's like stuff you would never figure out on your own.
Right. But at the same time, I think the thought behind all that stuff is you're not supposed to get it on your first try. So it's supposed to be, oh, I'm going to try all these combinations. Oh, this thing kind of works. Now it kind of pushes me a little bit closer to my goal. So in that aspect, I get why it's sometimes a little overcomplicated or it just doesn't make sense. But
yes, but okay. Let's talk about another game that took influence from adventure games, Silent Hill.
Okay. Right.
Think about some of the puzzles in that game where you're combining items that make no sense, or you're
True.
solving a puzzle that is just beating your head against the wall till you figure it out. That's the kind of stuff I don't like, but
Yeah.
I understand why they did it. I mean, there's no other way to kind of convey what they're trying to convey within a video game, at least at that time. But
Right.
that doesn't mean I have to like it.
Yeah. Out of all the genres, I mean, aside from fighting, adventure games aren't very high up on that list.
I've tried many times over the years to try different adventure games like Monkey Island and stuff like that, but Grim Fandango is another one I tried, and I just get kind of bored with it because I have to end up following a walkthrough, and that's not fun.
Yeah, or it's just in general, by nature of what it is, it's just a slower paced game, and you're just. I mean, it's a nice, relaxing game. I can't say I hate slow paced games because I play Stardew Valley all the time, but it's a different feel to it, and I don't know what that feel is. Like, I don't know why I don't like it as much as I probably could.
I mean, I've talked about this before, but over the years, I've just kind of gravitated more towards like gameplay focused games over story focused games. Not to say I don't love those kind of games still, but right now, I just don't really have an interest in playing a brand new game that is just the story. Like, there's a lot of, I know, good adventure and walking sim type games that come out still. It's just, I just don't have time for that kind of slow paced stuff. Like Red Dead Redemption 2, I never really beat it because it's such a slow game.
Yeah, and I mean, one that came out, I think, relatively recently, which is Mouthwashing. And people are talking about nonstop of, oh, this is a great horror game and all this stuff. I'm like, I'm not going to play it. And I just watched gameplay of it. And it is like that walking simulator horror kind of game. And I'm like, this isn't up my alley. So I'm glad I didn't spend money on this because I would have been angry.
Yeah, I mean, back when I was younger, I played a lot more just straight up story games just because I think I had more time.
Yep.
I don't think it has anything to do with anything other than that, where, now I can get a quick couple runs in of Balatro or something. And, most of my gaming time is spent for this show. So there's that as well.
Even Metal Gear Solid, like just watching all those really long cutscenes and like you get all that story. As a kid, I just sat there and I loved watching all that stuff because what else am I going to do with my day? Like, that is my time. Now with time being limited on our days, we're like, oh yeah, we got to just get to the gameplay and have the fun moments and not divulge in all the cinematics all the time.
Yeah, and that's why we kind of spread these out too, where it's like we're not playing a bunch of really story heavy games back to back. Yeah, all right. Let's just hop into this game then. Aconcagua was released in Japan only on June 1st, 2000. I hope I'm saying that right. We kind of talked about that already. Because I don't think they actually say it in the game, right?
They do, but they say it like kind of fast and like just during the conversation. I'm like, oh, I forgot to pay attention to how they just said that.
That must be in the beginning, right? Because after a while, they just keep saying the mountain.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, this was never released outside of Japan, despite having English and Spanish voice acting. I could do a deeper dive on this, I'm sure. But I'm assuming what happened was, the PS2's out. They don't want to bring this game over. Maybe this wouldn't be a big splash in America, but who knows? It might.
But the whole adding English for your like talking, it makes no sense. Like, you're already, you have it set and ready to go for another country and you just don't send it there. So how are people over in Japan playing this game?
Reading subtitles.
I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, the fan translation part of this is all of the English in the menus. Everything else in the other version was in Japanese still.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
So this was developed by Whack Whack, which I had never heard of. And This is a first-party Sony game. So published by Sony. Like, I don't understand how this happened because it seems like it was poised to be a big deal. And then they're just like, whatever.
Yeah, we're moving on. Who cares about this one?
They could have even ported it to PS2, and I think it would have been fine, honestly.
Right, it would have been a lot better in a lot of places.
Maybe. But so this is a point and click adventure game at its core.
Yep.
And like I said in the beginning, it feels a lot like The Walking Dead or the Quantic Dream games. Like, it's not as much focused on stumping you with puzzles as it is like following the story.
Yeah, it's in a sense, I don't know if we want to get into it immediately, but it's almost as if it's like a movie that you're kind of playing, and you're getting to the next scene to get the story continuing in the next cutscene.
Yeah, it's very cinematic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, just to get us started, I guess, I like the story. I think the story is great.
I love how they set it up in the beginning. Just you have this like Congress or politician, and she wants to change the way that the country is, and then terrorists take down the plane that she's on, and now you're trying to help her get back to the area so that things can be restored.
Yeah, essentially, like, there's a big political fight going on, and she's trying to prevent, I guess, civil war, essentially. And so all these people, they just want her. And I think now that she's not dead, they just want to like kidnap her and probably hold her for ransom or kill her eventually, probably. I don't know. But
right.
Yeah, the whole thing is like you're just trying to escape this mountain that you're stuck on now. And yeah, I mean, you run into different like enemies, and that's pretty much it.
Well, you run into one enemy just over and over again, pretty much.
I was kind of curious why there weren't animals or something.
Yeah, there's a lot more that this could have used, but you're pretty much just taking out soldiers that are on the opposition side, who took out the plane in the first place.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, your main character is a journalist, and you talk to the politician whose name is Pachamama.
Yep.
And how did you say our main character's name is? Kato?
Kato? I don't know.
Kato. So they say it like once or twice in the game ever.
Yeah.
But he loves mountains. And so whenever you crash in the mountains, you're like the survival guy the entire time.
Yeah, what I really like is each character has their own identity, 100%. There's not a generic character here. They all serve a purpose. So they each pretty much come with an ability set, I guess. And the game is kind of built upon you using each of them for different situations. So Kato has climbing gloves, so he can climb places the rest of them can't. One complaint I have that I'll just say right now is I don't like that you have to use them on it, how he won't just do it.
Yep. I click on the area that he's like, oh, I think I can climb this. Just let me climb it. You don't have to make me go into the menus every single time to click on the gloves.
Exactly. And I mean, that happens with a lot of these. But weirdly enough, later on, there were times where they just did it.
Is there?
So I think it's after where you stopped, which, by the way, I played 3.5 hours and I made it like an hour into disc 2, I would say.
Okay. And I played 4 hours and only finished disc 1, only because I made it to a certain point, a puzzle that I was stuck on. We'll be getting to that one. And gave up for the night. When I came back the next day, something messed up in my save file that put me back farther from where I was. So I had to redo everything up to that point again. So
yeah,
kind of took up a bit of time.
Yeah, there was a part later where you're using a lighter in the cave, and the first time you go there, you have to use it. But then after that, every time you go in there, it just automatically gets used. So
okay, and I think I get why, and we'll talk to that when we get to the mechanics overall. But
yeah,
I think I understand why that makes sense.
All right, so we have Kato. His ability is the climbing.
Yep.
Pachamama's ability is that she speaks Spanish. So anytime that you need to read well, this is taking place in South America, so it makes sense. I mean, all the documents that you find are all in Spanish. Most of the people that you talk to that aren't your team speak Spanish, so you need her for that.
No, I agree 100%. It fits with everything. It's funny how everyone has all these very specific things, and hers is just speak Spanish. That's the only thing that she has.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, politicians don't really have abilities in real life. They're just good at speaking.
Very good point.
So
that is a very solid point.
She's good at speaking Spanish.
And then the first person you come into contact with is Steve, which is an American.
He's an engineer, so that's his thing. He has a toolkit that you can use for various things.
And he's just that character that cries and complains the entire time.
I kind of enjoyed it sometimes where he's like constantly swearing when no one else does.
Yeah, I know. He's the only character that actually swears. The first time it happened, it took me off guard. Like, weird for a game like this to have that, but it makes sense given the circumstances of where they are.
Yeah, he's like, what the fuck is going on? Just like screaming.
Just always yelling.
So then there's Julia, who's another journalist from America.
Quote unquote journalist.
Yeah, I mean, where I played, they never really kind of got any farther than that still. I mean, they're suspecting that she is like filling in information to the enemy.
That's what I was gathering as up until the point where I made it. I'm like, this seems like it's her who's an insider, but that also could be a thing of they're setting it up that you think it's her, but it's actually someone else in the group.
That's exactly what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, because like the last thing I played was she got locked in like a cave, and Steve's like, "Fuck her! She's like betraying us. We need to leave her there." And everybody's like, "Settle down, Steve."
Yeah, and I mean, the reason they start getting suspicious, well, at least you as the player gets suspicious, is because out of nowhere she just starts taking out these guards with like stealth attacks with her knife and stuff, and it's like, where did you learn this ability? And she's like, I don't have time to explain this to you.
I'm assuming she's like an American spy.
That's where I was getting with it too, with especially when you're inside the compound, which is towards the end of disc 1, and they read that one pamphlet. It's like, oh, is someone watching us the entire time?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, it could go back to her.
Yeah. I mean, I liked her character a lot. I would say she's probably my favorite character out of all of them.
Mine too.
But there's also one more person. You don't find him immediately. His name is Lopez.
Yep.
And his ability is that he somehow has superhuman strength.
I wouldn't even say super. He's just strong. He's the strong guy of the group.
I don't know. I mean, there's like parts where he's pushing a minecart all the way up a fucking hill. And then like he was picking up these long concrete bars and shit. Like, what is he, world's strongest man over here?
Yep. And that's a big part too, is like whenever you meet someone new, whenever you're trying to figure out a puzzle, chances are that new person you just got is the key to that puzzle.
Yeah, there's also that other character that's there for a little bit. Pachamama's like bodyguard guy, but then he ends up dying.
Yeah, you don't, he's just there like temporarily. You don't really do anything with him.
Yeah. He does save you at that one point by shooting somebody, but other than that, it's kind of like whatever.
Yep. The funniest part to me is that every single time the bodyguard spoke, it was always in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone just awkwardly looked at him like, oh, we don't know what he's saying. But I'm like, Pachamama knows Spanish, so why can't she just say, oh, he said this? But no, everyone just awkwardly looks like even she doesn't understand what he's saying.
I don't know. One of the big positives for me with this game is like that sense of realism where like people are speaking Spanish. It's not everybody speaking English.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really something you ever saw back then, even years after this. Like this game does a really good job of building its atmosphere and what it wants to do.
Yep.
So like whenever you can't figure something out because they're speaking Spanish, you need to get her. Yeah, it's annoying. You have to make her walk over to this, but like I understand why. And I understand why the game is set up the way it is.
Yeah, it's always, well, and that's a huge mechanic to this game too, of you have this party of people and just using the triggers, you can cycle through them and make them do different things. So yeah, if you happen to send Kato out and then you find someone who speaks Spanish, well, yeah, now you got to switch over to Pachamama and have her run the entire way where he was just so she can talk to him. But that's the whole appeal to this, I guess, is just you're solving all these issues and you're figuring out, oh, I made it all this way. oh, now I need the toolkit. Now I need to get Steve over here because he's the one who can do it. So, like you said, it fits the vibe of the game and what they're trying to go for, and it just fledges out this entire world of people in this situation.
Now, is it fun to play? I don't know that I would say I'm having fun, but I'm enjoying the story and I'm enjoying what's going to happen from doing these things.
Even just in the beginning, I was talking about like, oh, I think this is what's happening. This is where it's going to, like, that just shows the story is very interesting and you have these theories on where it's going to go and you want to see it through to see how it ends. Gameplay wise, it's not there to support the story.
So I'm going to reveal something to you right now. I am very high on this game.
What?
I'm very high on this game. Like, I am very positive on this game.
Oh.
So,
like, you were on drugs playing this game? I don't know what you're trying to say.
All right. I think this is a really good game. I think it does what it sets out to do really well. So just going forward, I want you to know I love this game. So
interesting. Okay. Well, okay, so let's just go into like the whole mechanics of this because we keep kind of teasing it.
Yes.
The point and click aspect of it, to me, it's almost like you're on Google Maps on Street View and you want to click up a tiny bit to go one more spot up, but then you end up 5 blocks over in like another neighborhood and you're like, I don't know how I ended up here. I clicked 5 spots up. That's what this game is. You click on something and then somehow they're wandering off somewhere else, or it never goes where you want them to go.
So my biggest issue with this game, the puzzling decision, and I cannot understand in any way why you would do this. Why are you not controlling the characters in a third person view? Why are you clicking the mouse around?
Yep.
This game, to me, would be near perfect if it just let you control the characters.
It'd be a lot higher on my list if I could just freely move the guy around. Whenever we come in and like he's standing on the thing, I'm moving. The instant I move the arrows and I see the arrow moving and not the guy, I'm like, oh no, I gotta click on everything.
I mean, I did end up getting used to it. Like, you become accustomed to what the game wants from you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's just like sometimes it's annoying when you're switching angles or you have to get a very specific angle to touch a very specific thing. And like, you walk a little bit past it, switches back. Now you have to get on this little tiny square so I can pull this lever or whatever, And
whenever this started happening towards the end of the communication building, whenever you get to the bottom of the screen, I tried going down farther because I know there's more to the room, but the character just would not go. Like I'm clicking down. Here I had to like find the right spot to click to have them transferred to the next camera of the room.
Yeah. It gets very frustrating.
It's so frustrating. Not to mention that, I don't know if this is all the time, but the frame drops whenever you get too close to a wall and you're trying to move. It's like, what is causing this to happen?
Yeah, I didn't experience it that much, but when it does happen, it's kind of jarring.
Wait, you didn't have it experienced that much?
I can't think of frame drops that stood out to me. At least, obviously I'm the guy that's going to bring up the frame rate all the time, but like...
This is interesting because the best way I can put this is the more I played this game, the more it felt like the game was breaking. Because the farther I went into the game, like getting too close to a wall, my frames dropped significantly. And then the farther into the game I got, the worse that was getting.
I wonder if I just got used to it. Because like I played today. Like I can't think of any moments that stood out to me. I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that they're there. I'm not saying they're not. But I don't think that it was a deal breaker for me.
That's mind blowing because the instant it happened to me once, I'm like, oh, Jimmy has to be hating this. And then the more it started happening, I'm going crazy. So I knew you had to have been furious doing this.
I don't remember. Yeah, I mean,
wow.
Obviously, I bring it up when it's like, integral to the game and it ruins it. I don't really think that, clearly for me, this didn't ruin anything, but I just can't think. I mean, I know it happens sometimes. I definitely know, but I just can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Well, that's surprising.
I mean, another thing is a lot of the time when you're trying to solve these puzzles, you have to essentially have the characters talk about it first. But listen, I, on one hand, am incredibly annoyed by it, but I think this game is going for like a more realism based approach to a degree. So it's
They
like
are.
the characters have to like know about it. Like you know what to do, but they don't know. So you can't just like have a person do something that when they don't know about it. Does that make sense?
It does, but yeah, I mean, when you word it that way, it does make sense. But at the same time, it's like the characters either have to talk about it or that you have to discover all the things related to said puzzle before you can actually accomplish the thing you know you need to do.
Yeah, there was like a moment. I forget if this is disc one or disc two. The minecart stuff. Did you do that?
No, that was disc 2.
Okay. Well, there's a part where you have to fix something and you need Lopez to help you with it. So if you take Lopez there, I know what he has to do. I know he has to break this thing, but why would he just go and do that randomly?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to have Steve try and do something and then go tell Lopez, hey, can you come give me a hand? And then he'll do it.
Yeah. And even earlier in the game with the battery and the helicopter.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we need to get the comms back up. And then, but you can't do anything until you go and click on the empty battery compartment. It's like, oh, the battery is missing. And then it's like, but I know that's what we need. I can visually see there's nothing in there. So you need to activate that dialogue to then go find the battery.
I go back and forth on whether this is an issue or not. It's kind of just like, it's annoying, but it's what the game is going for. But also, it's just, I don't know. With these kind of games, I find it hard to criticize that stuff just because, like, this is all you're doing is the story. Like, it's not like it's taking away from anything. Like, this is all to service the story they're trying to tell. So, I guess that makes it fine, right?
Yeah, and the way you explain it to it does make a lot more sense of, yeah, we know, but technically the characters don't realize what's going on in the game. So you doing that is informing the characters, which is, yeah, I get it. It just is frustrating.
Yeah, I think the more modern stuff kind of doesn't let this happen. But also, on the other hand, you know, what other games are you playing as 5 people?
True.
I would say most adventure games, you know, you're playing as one person for an extended period of time. Whether you switch to a different one, it's different, but you never have like a rotating cast you can switch through.
Yep. And I'm going to go back to the comms building too. There's a part where you find the journal of the guy, and it's like, oh, it has a woman's name on it. And then it's like, oh, that's it. That's all you have to do. So later, when you need a password, it's like, oh, where can we find a password at? Why do you not just save the journal with you and take it so that later it's like, oh, I found this thing earlier. That's what this could be. Instead, you have to know it's there, then go back later to get it.
Yeah. Like, why didn't they just take it and be like, hey, here, Pachamama, take this. Read this to us.
Yeah, can you read this? Stuff like that I don't like, because if you're going based off of like what characters would do, you would just take it with you right then and there to get it figured out.
Yeah, it almost feels like padding, but I don't know if it's intentional padding. It's just like, you know, this is how adventure games work, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
With us not being adventure game fans, like, it's tough to know like what to say about some of this stuff. But like, with me being such a huge Telltale fan, like, I feel like I can directly compare this to those.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. All that stuff gets streamlined in the years to come after this. So,
exactly. But with that, I mean, I think we can move to the puzzles, which are very frustrating.
Yeah. So, you have to do things in a certain order a lot of the time, which is kind of confusing. Like, so when I had to use a walkthrough, it was when you're fighting the helicopter and you have to toss the raft onto the top of the helicopter.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand why that would make sense. I figured out that I had to like latch the helicopter onto the bottom of that thing, but having him go in that exact spot and be like prepared for it, I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, it is cool that they introduced that kind of early on, where it's not just one person needed for the puzzle. It gets to the point where you need to have one person as a setup, and then the other person goes and does something else, so that you kind of have them like in position, as you said. And then once the first person does the other thing, you can switch back to the other person, and then they finish what the task even is. So I take it you threw the raft the first time without hooking the helicopter, and then they shot you?
I didn't throw the raft at all, because why would a raft fucking take down a helicopter?
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, you think about it, it's like one of those industrial ones, so it makes sense why it would. But like in my mind, I'm like, why would I do this?
So for me, I thought it was a timing thing where as the helicopter's going by, you throw it. So I waited and it's like, are you sure you want to throw this? Yeah. And so he just chucks off this raft, and then you miss, obviously, because the helicopter's just flying around. And then the guys come up and they just start firing at you, and then you lose a lot of health because of it.
Yeah, I mean, I figured out that you had to latch it, and I had Kato down there trying to latch it, but it wouldn't let me do it.
Oh, yeah.
Because he has to be up there. So I'm like, I know I'm missing something. I just couldn't figure out specifically what it was. So I looked at a walkthrough for that, and a few other spots too. I mean, after that, I pretty much just had it up, but I wasn't like following it. I just, if I got stuck for too long, like the minecart part is very annoying. So that one I looked up. But, for the most part, I think the puzzles are very straightforward. You know what you have to do.
Kinda. So I'm going to just start with the very first puzzle you come across, and that's finding the toolbox for Steve.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I have Steve. I go to cross that deep snow. He gets hurt because he can't go through it. Okay, cool. I switch to Pachamama because I'm like, she's lighter, she's smaller. Maybe she can go on top of the deep snow and get across. She gets hurt. I spend probably 20 minutes in that area trying to figure out what to do next, because I'm like, I have this snow here that hurts me. What do I do? And I tried clicking on everything. I had to go to a walkthrough for that first puzzle because it's like, yeah, just use Kato and he'll walk right through it. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Well, he's the mountain climber guy, I feel like he's more experienced in these things.
Yeah. And now, like, after doing that, it makes a lot of sense. But it's like, if it hurts me 2 times, why am I going to do it a third time?
I understand. I just, I figured it out pretty quick. So I put Steve through it first. I definitely did that. But then I was like, oh, maybe he just can't do it. Also, there are a lot of hints too. Like if you have the characters talk to each other when you can't figure something out, they will help you.
I did think about that more. Like, I probably should have had them talk to each other a lot more throughout this game than I did. And that probably would have helped.
Well, they'll just be like, I wonder about this thing. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
Yeah. The only other puzzle that, oh my God, it was so frustrating, was when you have the radio and then you have that soldier guarding the area that you got to get him to walk onto the loose snow and fall.
That was what I was going to bring up next.
That was my tipping point. Like, I think I put about 45 minutes into that puzzle because I'm like, I want to figure this out on my own. And then reading that walkthrough made me so angry at what you have to do.
It makes sense why you would have to do it, but
no, it doesn't.
You're like taunting him, trying to get him to come closer to you so he'll fall.
Yes, but you have a radio. You can radio to this guy and pretend to be the other team and be like, oh, you need to get over here quickly or something.
They don't really use the radio at all, huh?
At the end of disc 1, they use it once. Yeah. And that's just to communicate with the helicopter. And that's the only time I've ever noticed that it's used.
I wonder if it just doesn't work because they're not on the same like frequency. I don't know.
Maybe, but it's like,
they didn't say that.
Yeah, it's like you're saying, oh, there's all this loose snow. So we got to be careful. So obviously you got to get the guy to the loose snow or get the loose snow to the guy. So I'm up on top of the mountain trying to make something happen to make the loose snow fall.
Yeah.
Which you don't do till later. And it's just like, the reason this annoyed me was because through the entire game up until this point, they teach you one rule, and that's do not let your people get hurt because there's only a limited amount of health.
Yeah.
For the solution to be hurt your people, it it goes against everything you were just taught. And to me, that's very poor puzzle design.
I agree with you. And there is a first aid kit right next to it. So it kind of like, you can heal the person immediately, but I still would have never thought to do that ever.
In my case, I already used the healing kit because leading up to that point, Julia was hurt a lot for me trying to solve the prior puzzles. So I'm like, oh, a healing kit. She can get healed up now, and I don't have to worry about that. Not realizing, oh, now I need to get someone else to be almost dead just from this puzzle.
I hear you. No, I mean, I obviously looked at a walkthrough too, so I would have never figured that out.
And the thing was like I walked out on accident, like you said, with the point and click stuff. You can never be accurate. So I clicked on an area and they accidentally went too far and then they get shot at. And I guess if I would have paid attention to what was happening, I would have seen the guy walk forward a little bit whenever he took a shot. But I think I was so focused on everything else going on that I'm like, what do I do to make this happen?
I mean, I would have never figured that out. I'm not even going to pretend like I would have. So
no, that was a big point for me where I'm just like, the puzzles in this game are not good just because of that moment right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 specific points, which I've already said, where I had to use a walkthrough, but I don't know. I think a lot of it is pretty self-explanatory. It's not that they're good puzzles, and I don't know. This game isn't a puzzle game either, right? Like, the goal is to not have fun puzzles. The goal is to move the story forward.
Yeah, but
I just mean you're not playing The Walking Dead for the puzzles. The puzzles in those games all suck too. It's like, here, use an item over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But then whenever you get to the comms and you have to then set up Julia into the bathroom and then push the alarm, that means you're failing first to then learn what has to be done. Then you're doing it a second time.
I did that exact thing. So yes.
Yeah, there's nothing to say, oh, you need to set this up ahead of time, just like with the helicopter. It's just, I don't know. And I get there's like not much you can do. It is just a learning experience in that point, but it's frustrating.
I didn't think that she would have to be in the bathroom. I thought she could just hide by the door and just stab him when he walks through.
Yeah. Common sense would say, oh, I could just do that. Or when you're on the mountain and she's like, oh, I can't get close to him, throw the knife or something. Like there's other ways to go about it.
Yeah, but you don't want to throw the only knife you have, though.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't know. I mean, this game wants to be played in a very, very specific way. And if you don't do that, then you cannot play it.
But then they try to trick you too, like with the satellite puzzle.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They have a satellite spinning crazily, like up on top. And you're like, oh, I need to figure this out. I don't know what I'm supposed to use. The amount of times I went like to the janitor's closet with different people trying to find maybe like, oh, maybe this character can use a broom or something to slow down the satellite dish. No, it's a completely different satellite dish somewhere else.
I know. It's it's strange choices is what it is. But I was just pretty invested in the story. So like I just, was ready to keep going.
I know, I get it. But
that's the hard part. It's like the story is legitimately good.
It is. Although, like we're talking about like the characters all having like their own personalities and stuff. One thing that frustrated me was when Julia kills that guard or the guy the first time. And like, how could you do that? How could you kill someone? I'm like, do we need to remind you that you just threw a raft at a helicopter and killed those 2 people on board? Like, why are you trying to be so have all your values in place when you just literally killed 2 people like 5 minutes ago?
Also, like, what else do you expect to happen? Like, you want to reason with them? Like, I don't.
That's why I think Julia is my favorite character. Is just like, she knows what needs to be done. She's getting that done. Just take out the people. We'll deal with it later.
And they're all like, what are you doing? Like, saving you stupid idiots.
Yeah. I can't believe you would kill someone. It's like, well, we were going to die.
Yeah, I mean, like, Steve sucks, but like, he's a needed character in this because you need that skeptical guy there.
Yeah, yeah.
And Kato is obviously supposed to be the main character, but he's fine. He's just the typical like hero archetype, like, we got to do this. you know?
I guess, yeah. Just he seems like the main character in the beginning, but then as you go on, it just doesn't seem like he's a main character anymore. It feels like Julia almost becomes like that main like character in a sense, because she's the one actually getting stuff done and moving us forward.
Yeah, I would say both of those two are the ones you use the most.
Yeah.
But like at a certain point, I ended up just kind of exploring with either Julia, Pachamama, or Lopez because like most of the time, those are the ones you have to go back and get for little stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that at a certain point, it doesn't fucking matter anyway. Because, you can never expect who you're going to need.
Yep.
I don't know, it just goes back to the other point where I'm just like, I wish you were physically moving these characters and not clicking a mouse. Like, I don't know.
No, I agree. I would have loved this game if you could just move characters around.
There's just so much moving back and forth all the time. And it's just a little frustrating.
But, I mean, oh no, before we go into positives, one more thing I need to complain about.
Okay.
So with that same puzzle where you need to lure the guy out, why is it that when you see the soldier, you jump back behind the rock and then he fires his gun, you still get hurt? How did the bullets hit you whenever the shots happened after you were back into hiding again?
Maybe they ricocheted off something. I don't know. I got no solutions for you here.
Because it happens all the time. Your characters get hurt after they're out of the way of danger.
I don't want it to seem like I'm excusing things. I just think like for what this is, it's about as good as you can expect.
Yeah.
There's not much more you can really say about it. And like I can complain about the stupid solutions to these puzzles all day, but it's just what these games are.
Yeah.
That's why like we haven't really played a ton of games with this kind of stuff, but like we still gave Silent Hill a good rating, even though the puzzles are bullshit. Cause like that's just what it is.
Yeah. I just think the puzzles are more involved or more at the forefront for this game than it was at Silent Hill.
Yeah, because there's no combat or anything. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we can move on from the gameplay. There's not really much more to say there.
There's not.
So I think the graphics are great. I mean, they're not like
what?
What? You don't like them?
This game is okay. Gameplay wise, they're not bad. Cutscene wise, any type of cutscene is a game of which polygon is going to win the war to be in front to be visible to the camera.
I don't know, man. I just think like they're doing in-game graphics as the cutscenes. If you looked at cutscenes from GTA 3 or Vice City, you'd probably say the same thing, right?
I don't think it would be that bad. Like, this is pretty much like a character's face is clipping with his face, which is clipping with his jacket.
The PS1 wobble.
Except worse, I think, in this one. It's just whenever they hold an object, the object is clipping through literally everything, and like even their arms are like clipping through their bodies, and none of it looks good, I don't think.
I just think every game looks like this from this era. Like all the games we play look like this. Like they're not smooth. I mean, think about fucking Silent Hill. It's worse than this.
No, what are you talking about?
Not the cutscenes, the in-game stuff.
Well, yeah, in-game stuff, this all looks fine.
Like the cutscenes are just in-game footage, though.
But that's when you are close up on the characters, and that's where you start to see the flaws of what's going on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so it's fine in Silent Hill, but not here. Like, I don't know. I like Resident Evil. It's all the same shit. It all doesn't look good, but like for what it is, I think it looks good. I'm not trying to say this is like a modern looking game. I just think like
no.
What more could they have done to fix it? There's not really anything. It's the PS1 that's the problem.
Maybe I just don't think we've seen it this bad before. Like especially in the very beginning cutscene when they're on the plane, and like they're just clipping through each other and while they're walking, and I don't think it was this bad in Silent Hill.
I guess you're right, but just because like those characters aren't doing stuff like this, they're just kind of standing there. Whereas like this is trying to be more like, interactive with items and things like that. Like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, they're just like standing there talking at each other. They're not really doing anything.
I'm trying to think about it. Yeah, I mean, but then you go to Crisis B where they're picking up stuff and throwing it, and that looks smooth and like they're not clipping through stuff.
I mean, are you sure they're not?
Yeah, now I don't know because now I'm questioning everything.
I don't know. I mean, so you're saying that the graphics are fine, like what we're looking at right now, where it's the regular gameplay, the graphics are fine, but once you start getting into the close-ups, you see like the flaws.
Well, even here you can see it where like his arm just fused into his body because he stood up.
I have bad news. Every game looks like that on the PS1.
I don't think that's right.
Think about Tekken and Crisis Beat. Both of those look like that for sure.
But then I can raise you Solid Edge, or not Soul Edge.
Name one other game besides Soul Edge that doesn't look like that.
I wasn't ready for that.
I was waiting for that. I knew you were going to say it.
I think, I don't know. I think for you to say this isn't the worst we've seen so far is a bit crazy.
The worst? You think this is the worst graphics we've ever seen on this show?
What would be worse than this?
All right, let me move over to the list here. All right. So you're just talking about in-game graphics, right?
Yeah, just things that where we're seeing this much clipping. Because I'm looking at our list too.
Cool Borders, Tale of the Sun, Die Hard Trilogy, Tomb Raider.
Okay, Cool Borders I agree with, yes.
Die Hard Trilogy is a mess. Tomb Raider, obviously a mess.
Yeah.
Magic Carpet graphics were constantly just fucked up. Bugs Life,
also,
Driver.
You're listing all of the games towards the bottom of the list, which I agree with you. That's yeah.
Diver's Dream had the clipping a little bit whenever you were in gameplay.
A little bit though.
Armored Core had lots of clipping, but that's, robots. I don't remember if Siphon Filter had it, but it's been so long, so I can't say.
I can recall a few tiny things of like his arms clipping through his body when he's running.
They all do this. Like Metal Gear Solid has a ton of it too. You know what I mean? It's just like the way it is.
I don't know. I don't know if this is the first time I'm really noticing it. And if that is the case, that just tells me why it's the worst in that, because I'm now noticing it.
I think that you're noticing it because most of those games, so specifically Silent Hill and Siphon Filter, whenever they have cutscenes, they do this thing where, yes, it's the same graphics, but it's all like smoothed over. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Especially Siphon Filter. Like when they're standing, like doing the mission briefing, like it looks like the graphics, they're still blocks, but it's like rendered in a different way. You know what I'm talking about?
I get it. And this is just giving me flashbacks to Crash Bandicoot 2, where I made that comment of, oh yeah, it looks exactly like the first one, and you wouldn't let that go. And then even after the show,
yeah,
you pulled up footage to prove to me how bad it was. I'm like, okay, now seeing the side by side, I see how much better it is. And I feel like that's what's going to happen when we're done recording with this one too.
And to be fair, we don't know how much of this is due to the emulator. We're playing this at a slightly higher resolution than the original game. There are effects in the emulators that get rid of the wobble completely. So,
right, yeah.
We've talked about whether we should use that or not. That's what I mean. It's like, I don't know if like there's more of this because we're upscaling it a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess I kind of forgot about those other factors that come into play.
You figure it wouldn't be this sharp if we were playing the very, very original game either.
And the other side to this too is I feel like this game does a lot of close-up like talking scenes as opposed to all these other games where we're typically far away from the characters at all times.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you're just like your camera's just a little too close and now you're seeing all the flaws of the characters probably.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to tell you this is the most beautiful game I've ever seen. I don't think it is notably bad. I think it's fine. Like, I don't see a problem here at all.
A lot of it is good. I do like a lot of it. It's just the characters themselves clipping through everything is where I have the problem. I love the environments. I love the fire effects look really cool. for this time period. It's just that that one tiny little thing.
I mean, what I'll say is I think the environments got a little too samey towards the end of my gameplay. I was starting to get into like caves and mines and stuff, so I'm assuming that it's going to start kind of going that direction. I don't know. I was getting tired of the snow the whole time, you know?
But then again, you're just on a mountain. How much different can it be?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that it's like a knock against the game, but I definitely was feeling a little fatigued on it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think the voice acting is good. Do you disagree with that?
I think the voice acting is good. The dialogue is not.
Oh, like the writing, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
but that's expected for this time period.
They're just kind of like saying the same things a bunch of times over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just very vague, generic things that are saying. Is like, this has, like, whenever you first meet, or when Steve first meets, what's her name?
Julia?
Sorry. Yeah. When he finally meets Julia, he's like, oh, I am also American. I am from LA. It's like, why did you say it that way?
Yeah, they're not natural sounding conversations.
Nope. But I mean, the voice actors, especially Pachamama's voice actor, was very good.
I was just about to say that. She was the best voice the whole time.
Yep.
I think the worst is probably Lopez.
Yeah, they kind of do that, trying to do that stereotypical Latino male voice.
That, I just feel like he's supposed to be just like big, dumb, strong guy, and he kind of talks like he's stupid.
See, my worst was Steve. I hated his voice and just...
I mean, he was annoying, but I don't think the guy was a bad voice actor. You know, he was just an annoying character. I just thought Lopez's like voice was like stupid. I don't know. But lastly, we have the music, which I think is very good.
The music saves this game a lot.
Yeah. It really makes it feel like a movie.
It has like an RPG sound to it. Like RPGs have a very specific sound to music. This has it. As parts of it, I don't know if you'd agree or not, sounds like Star Wars.
I could see that, yeah.
They had just had the trumpets going along with the music, so it sounds like that.
It's just very clearly high budget music. Like they really went all in for this. And like, if this game had bad music, like you're saying, I think it would have tipped the other way hard.
Music is the saving grace for me. I didn't get a chance to go back and listen to the OST, but just from in game, I loved every single bit of it.
I don't know if this is necessarily a listen to the OST soundtrack type of vibe. I think it's mostly it makes sense and it really adds to the scenes, but I don't know if listening to it on its own would be great.
Exactly. Yeah. It emphasizes what's happening and like, oh, there's a bad guy coming. And then that's where like you get the horn music that sounds like Star Wars.
I really enjoyed the like sad violin stuff that's going on when you're exploring it. Again, really reminds me of when you're walking around in The Walking Dead.
Yep.
But yeah, so unless you have anything else, I think we can hop into some reviews.
Yeah, that's it.
So before we get to our scores, let's take a look at a couple retro reviews, see how the game was received at the time. I barely found anything for this game. I mean, there's a bunch of modern reviews, but I mean, with it being a Japan-only game, like, nobody was really talking about it. So Famitsu gave it a 29 out of 40, and there's no quotes or anything put on the review. I have the score. I wrote that for you.
There you go.
And the one review I could find was from our trusty go-to in German magazine Video Games.
I'm glad that logo has gotten a lot of use.
All these games, like, I can't find anything, and there's their review. Like, they were just on it back then, I guess. Like, they must have had someone who spoke, like, all languages on their staff or something. Because, like, they're reviewing all this stuff. Like, I don't know. But here's what they said. It's a shame that Sony didn't put a little more emphasis on the graphics. There are often major polygon errors, characters run through others, and story-linking render sequences fell victim to the cost squeeze. In our opinion, that's why there's iconic Spanish and, of course, English voice acting. Anyone who knows Spanish has a gaming advantage in Aconcagua. Overall, an unusual game that could definitely appeal to adventure fans.
I'm glad they bring up the graphics things too, because that makes me feel a little bit more justified of what I was trying to say.
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I just spent all that time defending it, and clearly at the time it was still an issue. So I will admit I'm wrong there.
But like you said, I can go back and look at some gaming stuff or some of our prior videos. Maybe it's always been there, and I just never paid attention.
But that brings us to our scores.
Oh boy!
And I accidentally closed my game ranking master list, so I'm going to bring that back up right now. And I can go first, I guess.
Yeah, I want to. You're very high on this, and I want to see why and where you are.
I really like this game. It reminds me of The Walking Dead. All these games that I like, the kind of adventure game that I like is what this is. Yeah, this is a very almost primitive version of those more modern experiences, but I think there's still a lot to like here. Obviously, I had to use a walkthrough at times. There obviously was a lot of complaints, but overall, I had a really good time. And if I had more time, I would have played through this whole game 100%. And how often do I ever say that on this show? Not often. So I know where I'm sitting. I'm just kind of looking here like, do I really think it's better than this game? And like, I'm going to go with a 7.5.
Oh. Wow. Okay.
Is that an actual wow or just a,
no, that's for once, that's an actual wow. I didn't think you were going to go that high.
I just think for what this is trying to accomplish, it hits the nail on the head. And like the fact that I'm invested this heavily in a story from a PS1 game to me says a lot.
No, I get that. And I will say I was very low on this, but after the conversation, it did bring it up a bit. And like we said, we want to know more about the story. I'm genuinely invested in like, where does this go? How does it end? What is the rest of the story? The music, great. For me, it's the controls, the puzzle design. Those are the two biggest flaws of this game, and it just sucks so much.
I can agree.
So I will bring this up significantly, and I'm going to go with a 6.
What were you sitting at before?
Do you really want to know that answer?
Yeah, I do.
Originally, I was sitting at a 4.5.
You're actually insane.
I brought it up a good chunk.
I think if you care about a story in a game, then it's at least a 5.
But the main part of the game is these puzzles and the movements. And with that being the worst part of the game, it hurts it a lot.
I hear you. I just think that like, I don't know, some people probably like the mouse cursor stuff. I don't like it, but
yeah. And like I said, like you convinced me that, yeah, I'm focusing too much on these two things I hate so much, but there were a lot of good things I liked. And I'm just not focusing on that. I just want to be angry at the game.
Hey, I've been there many, many times on this show.
I know. But a small, what's that word?
Conflict?
Tie.
Yeah, tie, whatever.
Small tie. We're at 6.75, which puts us with Elemental Gearbolt, Chocobo Mystery Dungeon, and Tekken 1. I think I know where you're going to put this, and I would probably agree.
I would say either above them all or underneath Elemental Gearbolt.
I was thinking you were going to go above everything, and I was going to agree with that.
That's fine.
For what it is, I think this has more depth to it than Elemental Gearbolt.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with putting this at the very top of the list. Cool. So that will put us at number 21, right underneath Chocobo Racing and right above Elemental Gearbolt.
Yeah, I mean, I like this game. Like I said, I think it was fun. And I'm definitely 100% going to watch the rest of it on YouTube.
You don't want to actually play it?
I just don't have the time to play another, 3 to 4 hours to complete it, I think.
Fair.
Also, we didn't mention this, but the game does have multiple endings, which is pretty cool.
I had a feeling it would as we're playing along. Like, it just seems like there's a lot of opportunity for you to, oh, you did this instead of this, or you took too much damage. So it changes the outcome of how the game would go. But I'm curious to what those endings are now.
I'll fill you in next week after I watch it.
All right.
But all right, that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We will see you next week.